Okay, welcome everyone. I'd like to convene this business meeting. Can we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic, and one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all. Okay, I'd like to move on to the comments and reports from the Board of Education. And I guess we'll start with the discussion on the vaccine mandate. So the recent bills pending, one in the New York Assembly proposed by Assemblyman Dinowitz and one in the New York Senate proposed by Senator Hoylman, provide that students all must be vaccinated with the COVID-19 vaccination once the vaccinations are fully approved by the Food and Drug Administration and as soon as the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices adds them to its immunization schedule. Just for some background, Hoylman and Dinowitz were also the lead sponsors of the 2019 legislation that ended the religious exemptions to required vaccines of school-aged children during a measles outbreak. The current bills do not have any exemptions for personal beliefs or, from what I understand, even prior infection. New York State Governor Hochul also has said she's willing to consider anything when asked if she would mandate COVID vaccines for children, whereas Bill de Blasio has not voiced support of a student mandate, saying that he does not want to take the chance of a kid or a family who is not quite there yet of being excluded from being in school, and he pointed to the high vaccination rate currently of the children 12 to 17 already. So now let's look at the only state that has a COVID-19 vaccination mandate in the country. California Governor Newsom recently required that students in K through 12 in both public and private schools must receive the COVID vaccine one semester after FDA approval for their age group. The mandate, however, includes a personal belief exemption, which includes religious beliefs, but is expected to be broader. This is different than the current bills pending in New York State, which do not have this personal belief exemption. This allows parents to opt out of the vaccine requirement for their personal beliefs. As these are new vaccines, it is understandable that many parents are hesitant about such mandates, especially when the younger children are far less affected by the virus. We have other vaccines that are routinely given that are not required by the state to be given to children in K through 12, such as the flu vaccine. At Oyster Bay, we've had a very high vaccination rate, as it is, and a very low COVID rate. We've had very few, if any, quarantines due to COVID cases in our schools, and this is without any mandates. We all hear about the first responders and nurses who have been let go for refusing a vaccine, even though they were helping us during the height of the COVID pandemic, and even though many of them were already infected and therefore have some immunity. For me personally, my heart goes out to these first responders and healthcare workers, and I truly hope that things change in the future. However, I digress. But as the healthcare workers left their positions, we could see parents taking their children out of school as well. As a school, we want to make sure we educate children. This includes children from vulnerable communities where vaccine rates are much lower. If a vaccine mandate is created, some of our most vulnerable students may be pulled from school until parents feel more comfortable with the data associated with giving the new vaccine to our children. This is something we would like to prevent. At this time, I would like to create a legislative committee, that's a committee of this board, that will look at the data, and although we as a board are not physicians and healthcare decisions are best made between a parent and their physician, we would like this committee to see if it is in the best interest of keeping our students in school if there was a no vaccine mandate, or at least a personal belief exemption and a prior infection exemption to any COVID mandate similar to California's personal belief exemption. We would also like to make our legislators understand the concerns of some of our parents when these two bills come up for vote, so that perhaps amendments, they could either vote down the bills entirely, or amendments including personal belief exemptions and possible prior infection exemptions will be proposed by these legislatures prior to passing a law. It is in the best interest of our school to keep students in school. So at this time, I'd like to poll the board on whether they want to create such a committee to research this very important topic facing our community and children. I'll personally start off the discussion because my vote is yes. I think it is needed as these vaccines are brand new and the low mortality rate of COVID in children, which can even have a milder course in children than the flu, and the flu vaccine is not mandated for children to enter school. The issue I see facing parents' decision is that there needs to be more data on the long-term effects. There will already be societal pressures on families to vaccinate their children, whether it's going to see a Broadway play show or to attend other community activities, that the vaccination rate will be high without a mandate. Similar to what Bill de Blasio is seeing in the city schools, we are also seeing this high vaccination rate here. More time is needed so that parents can feel more comfortable with the vaccine and feel like they have the ability to choose the health care for their children. So right now, I'd like to go and poll our board to see what they feel about creating a subcommittee, at least to investigate this and hopefully write some letters to some of our politicians regarding this bill, because the Assembly doesn't convene again until January. And I'd like to hear a little bit from the board. So if I could start with, maybe I'll start at the end, Mr. Schindler.
I'm all for the committee, and I would just encourage everybody to go to the New York State Senate website and express their opinion there. I don't know what impact the board can have, but I think the more people express their opinion with the New York State legislator, the better.
Ms. Windhausen?
I'm 100% for the committee. I will help be part of it any way I can. I have 3 children, ages 9, 11, and 13, and I'm definitely not ready to vaccinate them yet, and I certainly don't want to pull them out of school either. So I will do whatever I can to fight for our children and give the parents the choice.
Mr. Jabosi?
Yes, Mrs. Kowalski, I agree with you. I think a committee is definitely in order, and let's find out everything we can.
Ms. Santos?
Yes, I agree. I think it's very important for our legislators to understand when they're voting to pass such a bill that they understand how the parents feel. The only way that we could demonstrate to our legislators how the parents feel is to form this committee and state to our legislators that what I think is going to come out of this committee is that people want their own personal exemption for their personal decision. And at this point, I think, in speaking to parents, that's how they feel. But I think it's important that we open it up and that discussion to our community. So I 100% support it and would certainly serve on the committee.
And Mr. Cronin?
I support the committee. I think our big concern is to keep our students in school. We did such a great job getting them back into school, and I would fear that the parents would take them out of school if there was a mandate. We definitely don't want that. I have a daughter in school too, and I really don't know if I'd get her vaccinated right now with everything going on. So I am in favor of the committee, and we need to, get on this as soon as we can.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cronin. Now, Dr. Yanni, as far as facilitating this committee, we would obviously need your help and know that you're on board with supporting us in this endeavor. We have lots of relationships with legislators currently. And it's something that we'll discuss, obviously, in the committee, how we want to approach the legislators.
Thank you, Ms. Kowalski. Thank you, Ms. Kowalski, and I support the decision of the board to form a committee to make sure that our students will continue to remain in school. Also, on a personal level, as a parent, I don't know at this point with the vaccine being out for shorter than a period, a little bit shorter than maybe a little bit more than a year, if I would, as a parent, vaccinate my child at this point. So I support that, and I will do everything in my power to make sure that we'll continue to keep all the students in school and to advocate for our children. And I think that at the end of the day, it is important that we reflect back on this year and the work that the board has done to keep the students in school. Because learning from a computer, learning from a Zoom meeting, a Zoom classroom is not productive, and it will create problems for years to come. So in support of that, I will get to work immediately to create that, and I'll update the board as we move forward. Thank you.
Now I'd like to go on to the report on the Wellness Committee. Mr. Jabosi, and I know Ms. Windhausen sit on that committee.
Yeah, thanks, Mrs. Kowalski. So the Wellness Committee is comprised of board members, members from the administration, parents, and students as well. And we look at a bunch of things, mainly from the food service in the district, as well as allergies and physical and mental wellness. So this meeting focused mostly on food service. We had seen a decline in the selection, the quantity, the quality, the way the food was distributed around the school. We had the administration walk through of, why there's a few different locations in the high school, and it was mainly because of the cafeteria size and social distancing still required as people are eating with masks off. So that's why there's 3 distribution sites in the school. With COVID, there is RMEC reported there's a tremendous food shortage. So they get certain foods one week and there's a shortage the next. So their standard menu that they're usually used to having could change with a moment's notice. They are going to try to be as proactive as possible to make updates to that menu so parents can choose. The portion size was supposedly corrected. We weren't sure why it was ever reduced. So I think it's a good working relationship with the district, with the committee, with the RMEC. I think we are back on track in COVID times, still working our best through that. And I think there was a lot of collaboration going on, so I thought a successful meeting. We put on the agenda for next meeting to talk about different types of allergies in school and what we can do about them and still be as prepared as we've always been. We also talked about physical and mental wellness and physical fitness. Our new athletic director was, I believe tonight, being appointed to this committee. So I think he's going to have a big say in those 2 areas going forward. Ms. Windhausen, I don't know if I've missed anything, but that's just a high-level summary of the committee's meeting.
No, I think he covered everything, but if anybody ever has any questions or concerns, or if your children come home with any complaints or anything, please reach out to Darren or myself, because we are going to be meeting with them regularly, and hopefully we can rectify any issues going on.
Okay, thank you, Darren and Nora. Let's now move on to the superintendent's report.
So last weekend, I had an opportunity to attend the Vernon musical, Madagascar, and it was an impressive performance the students did. From the sets, the costumes, and the music, it was just incredible. So there was a packed house the entire weekend, and so congratulations to all the students, the staff, and under the direction of Ms. Chapardi. So a big thank you to them. Kids had an amazing time. End of November is usually an exciting time. Students have settled in, and there is so much going on in school. The other night I was talking to a parent, and I said, this Oyster Bay, I'm learning that this is like a city that never sleeps. There's always somebody around. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, every day. So before I conclude my report, which is a short report tonight, I just want to congratulate, and I know I should wait for the appointment of the resolution, for the board to vote on the resolution. I want to congratulate Elaine Thompson. She's our new mathematics teacher, new addition to our family. Elaine is here with husband. So we wish you many, many years of success. I know I should wait to the board until the board approves, but I think they're going to accept my recommendation to appoint you tonight. So we're going to wait on the applause after the resolution. But welcome This is an amazing community, and you have the best part of this community is the students that you have. You're going to see that it's something like you've never seen before. So looking forward to work with you. Thanksgiving is just a few days away, and it is during this time that we get to reflect upon the many blessings that we have. Today, this board meeting last year, I was appointed as your superintendent of schools, and I have to say that this has been one of my best years of my life. I'm grateful for the work that our students, with the support of our teachers, staff, administrators, have done to make Oyster Bay truly a special place to work and learn. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the Board of Education for their support and for allowing me to serve as your superintendent of schools. It is an honor and a privilege to work with your students, to work in this community every single day. So I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the family, some regrouping time, and truly a blessing to be part of this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yanni. Now let's move over to the Audit Committee and the External Auditor presentation.
Evening. So thank you for asking me to present the results of the audit. I did meet with the audit committee 2 weeks ago to go in depth of the 2 audits that we did. So what I did tonight is I prepared an overview of the audit just to give you a high-level review. If anybody has any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer them. So if you look behind you, you can see my PowerPoint. Oh, you have it up there too.
You have it here
Great.
too. Yeah.
So on both audits, you received an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion you can get as a school district. We had no problems giving you a clean opinion. The books, the records were in great shape. Maureen Rayner, first year working with us, she did a great job, and her team. They were very helpful, giving us all the information that we needed to get the audit done. So thank you to your team for working with me and my team also. Okay. All right, so in addition to giving you an opinion, we also look at your internal controls. So what we do is we issue you a management letter. We did not find any material weaknesses or any concerning things with your controls. However, we always have recommendations. So these, as you can see, are some of the items that we did recommend. I know the district is already implementing a lot of the recommendations. They are very proactive. They really take our audits seriously. So overall, nothing material, but always something that we like to do. All right, next slide. So this is where we summarize your financials. So your fund balance, as you can see, the general fund is what your budget is based on. That did increase slightly, not much this year, 2.55% from last year. So we break that down into categories. So you have restricted, you have assigned, and you have unassigned. Your restricted is what it means. It's very restricted to that specific purpose. So you have a capital reserve. That's the most restrictive out of all these reserves. The voters approve the capital reserve. They also approve use. Okay, the other ones are pretty much board restrictions, so I'm going to go into detail on what changed from last year to this year. But for instance, employee retirement system, that only went up slightly, that's only interest. You cannot use that reserve for anything else but employee retirement system expenses. You have teachers' retirement system, which was new 2 years ago, and that's also specific to that purpose. Employee benefit accrued liability reserve is for compensated absences. So if anybody leaves the district, that you have to pay them vacation and sick time, that comes out of that specific reserve. You have unemployment, which was slight change from last year, and restricted for insurance. So these are really strategies for long-term planning for funding any long-term expenses in the district. So the district has always been very proactive in establishing a long-term plan for not only their capital needs, but some of these other needs that you do have at the district. So after the restricted categories, we do have what we call assigned. That's a little bit less than restricted. It's assigned for a specific purpose. So you have assigned general support, assigned instruction, and assigned employee benefits. Those are all your open purchase orders at the end of the year. That is an accounting reserve. It's just really a timing difference of whatever the open purchase orders are at the end of the year. Then the next category of assigned is what you're appropriating for next year's budget. So that is a revenue item on your 21-22 budget. So last year you appropriated $1 million for this year's budget. You actually gave more back to the taxpayers in 21-22 as you appropriated $228,081 more than the prior year. So that helped with the taxes for the next year. And then the last category is what we call unassigned. That is the money that is not earmarked for anything. It's essentially your savings account. That is limited to 4% of your next year's budget. So this year you were exactly at the 4%. And the reason you want to have that 4% is if there's any unanticipated expenditures or state aid shortfalls, that will come out of that unassigned fund balance. So that's very important because, as you know, there is a lot of uncertainty with the state and other expenses that COVID expenses and other expenses that the districts will be incurring. So by having that 4%, that's a really solid financial plan. The financial advisors really look at the unassigned fund balance. They want to make sure you're at that level when they come in and they evaluate you on what your bond rating is. So to have that level is very important, and also to show that you do have a long-term plan for the reserves and for the long-term expenses for the district. So overall, like I said, you only went up 2.55% from last year, and essentially it was really, most of it was really funding the capital reserve, which is something that is, like I said, requires voter approval to establish. So that was the big increase this year from last year. So that's the general fund. Then we have a few other governmental funds that we opine on. The school lunch fund, this is where we record, or the district records, all the activity for the school lunch program. So all the sales, any state or federal aid that you do get, go through that school lunch program. This year you did have a decrease because there was a loss in the school lunch program from last year to this year. So this is something I've seen at a lot of our districts due to COVID, not as much participation, so you're finding the sales are going down from prior year. So there was a decrease of the $56,000 this year. Miscellaneous Special Revenue Fund, that's new this year. We did implement a new GASB, GASB 84, where we had to evaluate certain accounts that were considered fiduciary in nature previously. And if the district did have control over those accounts, they are now considered governmental. So now the Miscellaneous Revenue Fund includes your scholarships and your donations, which was previously in a fiduciary account. And then the assigned unappropriated is your extra classroom accounts, because the district does have administrative control over those accounts. So essentially the change in those two is really due to any revenues and expenses associated with those activities. Debt service is really where debt service is recorded. The only change this year was interest income, so that was just a slight change from last year. You have the capital projects fund, so that's broken down to restricted for capital projects, which is essentially projects that are funded by a capital reserve, and then restricted for unspent bond proceeds, which is projects that are funded by the bonds, and then assigned unappropriated would be any projects that were funded by budgetary interfund transfers going from the general fund. Okay, so then the next few slides really talk a little bit in detail of what transpired this year with first the general fund. So the fund balance, like I said, did go up 335,000 or 2.55%. And that was primarily due to revenues and other financing sources exceeding the expenditures. And the revenues went up slightly, 0.55% or 323,000. Expenditures went up 1.7 million or 3.05% compared to the prior year. And that was primarily due to increases in instruction, general support, pupil transportation, employee benefits, debt service, interest, and that was offset by decreases in operating transfers and community service. Then a little bit more about the reserves and the restricted and what transpired from last year. So your employee benefit accrued liability reserve, which is your compensated absences reserve, that did decrease this year, 26,235. So what the district does is they use that reserve for current year payouts. So you had payouts of 33,330 this year, and then there was an allocation of interest of a little bit more than of $7,000. So that's really what happened with that reserve this year. The employee retirement system, unemployment, and insurance reserves just changed slightly, and that was just really due to allocation of interest. The teacher's retirement system, which I had mentioned was relatively new, that did increase from last year, 98,127, and this is really to fund any increases in rates that may come with the TRS system. So you allocated interest this year of 1,293, and you also funded that reserve 96,834. With regards to capital reserves, so you did have an allocation of interest of 9695. You funded, as you know, you have two capital reserves, one for technology and one for regular capital reserve. So you did fund each of those 750,000. And then the voters approved appropriating the capital reserve of 475,475. So that came out of the capital reserve. It was a reduction of the capital reserve in the general fund, and it got transferred over to the capital fund where the expenses will be paid out of the capital fund. School lunch, as we said, you did have an operating deficit this year of 62,184, and that was offset by a transfer of 5,945 from the general fund for unpaid meals. Miscellaneous special revenue was just the activity in the extra classroom and the scholarships and donations for the current year. Debt service was just an allocation of interest for this year. Capital projects fund, that did decrease this year. It was primarily due to capital outlay. You had about $3.9 million in capital outlay this year. That was offset by that money that was appropriated from the capital reserve of $475,475. And then there was a $100,000 operating budget transfer from the general fund that was a funding source in the capital projects fund. And then you did get some proceeds from installment debt this year of $206,481. So that's what transpired this year with the capital fund. This was the new GASB I was mentioning before that was implemented this year, GASB 84, called the fiduciary activities. And it was really allocating certain activities now to a governmental fund as opposed to fiduciary if the district had administrative control over those activities. Next year, we'll be implementing GASB 87, which is the lease standard, where we're going to be analyzing all the leases at the district to determine if the leases should be operating leases or capital leases. The terminology is a little different this year, and the criteria is different, so we need to get a list, and we'll be working with the district on that to determine the proper accounting treatment in the upcoming year. So overall, you know, we felt that, and it is in your audit report, that the district does have a strong financial health, and that was primarily due to the continued leadership of the district's board and administration, cost-effective purchasing procedures that you do practice, participation in various consortiums, commitment to funding of your reserves, strategic use of your BOCES, and also long-range financial planning. And the reason why you want to have, it's important to have financial health is really assists in setting your tax levy. It improves your cash flow, it improves your credit rating, it reduces borrowing and interest costs. It also funds any unbudgeted contingent expenses. it funds state aid shortfalls, and then bottom line, it does preserve the existing programs and opportunities for the students. So it's really important to maintain that financial health. So all in all, we felt the controls were in very good shape. There was a few minor items that we did recommend. Financially, you are moving in the right direction. You are, looking to the long term for your long-term needs. You are maintaining that unassigned at the level you should, which will help you in the short term for anything that may transpire in the upcoming year. So, we just had very positive results this year with the audit as we have in the prior years. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I know we met 2 weeks ago with the board at the audit committee level.
Anyone have any questions? No. Thank you, Mary Ann. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the approval of the minutes of the special meeting 10/4/21, the workshop meeting 10/12/21, the business meeting 10/26/21. Do I have a motion? Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And let's now move on to the Business Facilities Report and the 21st Century Capital Improvements, 7th presentation.
Hi, everybody. I have, last 2 days ago, I was in Philadelphia, and I ran the Philadelphia Marathon. It's 26.2 miles, and I was in the corral. I think it's called the corral. Basically, I was waiting to start, and it was freezing. It was early in the morning. It was 7 o'clock, and there were a lot of things going through my mind. One of them was the fact that I'm thinking of running 26 miles. It's early in the morning, it's cold, and I was nervous because my wife was waiting. I've told everybody that I was running the race, and at the same time, I'm at the school for the most hours of the day. And one of the things that came to mind was the fact that I said to myself, you know what, I've been working on this race for the past 18 weeks. I get up every morning at 4 o'clock, and I do the run, I do the training. And one thing that came to mind, it says, I've done everything I could possibly do. So the only thing I got to do, I got to just put my mind at ease and run 1 mile at a time. And while I was doing that, I thought about work, and I thought about the bond, and I thought about all the work that myself, my team, and with the support of the board, we put together. And I said to myself, I'm nervous about December 7th because I want the best for our kids. I want the best environment for our kids to learn, to succeed, and to be proud of the walls that they walk in every single day. And I said to myself, just like the race, there is nothing that I could have done more. I talked to everybody that wanted to listen. I invited myself every place that I could be. There's one thing that I didn't do. I didn't go into people's living room. Maybe that's one thing that I could have done that I didn't do. But the rest, I've done everything. So the race was pretty good. It was 3 hours and 30 minutes and 30 seconds. I felt great. I got a nice Philly cheesesteak. I drove home. And I hope that the bond will be the same way with your support. So let me go through the last presentation and just talk to you about a few things. And the first thing that came to mind is always the same, is why we're doing it right now. Why the bond now? And I think the answer is pretty simple. The answer is looking at our facility, looking at what we have, look at the conditions that we have in some of our schools, and decided that now is the time. This is one of the stages, and I've shown many presentations, but you can look it up on the website, is stages are divided into areas for learning, and that's unacceptable. So this is an area on the Theodore Roosevelt, that the stage cannot be used because they're used for learning, and that's inappropriate. This is what a learning space should look like for a school like ours. And that's when I go back to the same thing. Why are we doing it now? I think that's the best answer to give the why. You're looking at learning space, you're looking the way students are learning is different than the way they were learning years ago. And so the idea is, can we create that space so that students be successful, learn in the right way, and want to be in that learning environment, which is the 21st century, which is different than where we grew up. So when you look at this bond, when you look at the bond referendum, look at the project that we have, this is a necessity. This is a necessity that comes at one-time opportunity that we have. And one of the questions that I always go back to is the fact that we have what we have, and so the question is why we have those conditions. And those conditions were there because they were temporary. They were temporary temporary solutions that were put in place. Now is the opportunity to take advantage of some of the financial conditions that we have right now. So when you look at some of the work, one of them is the main entrance at the high school is becoming the main entrance. And the idea would be to reposition the name of the gymnasium, which was named after a superintendent that I believe was in school over here and became a superintendent, was a student, and I believe was a superintendent and a student, and rename it and put it on the side on the gymnasium wall, which is where it belongs, and recognize the entrance of the high school as the main entrance. That's where 90% of our students come. Some of the classrooms that we have, again, thinking about the why we need it now, some of the classrooms are original. The school was built in 1929. So when you go on the second floor of here, you will see that some of the classrooms are in the same conditions that they were when they were built. You're looking at some of the learning spaces in order to provide the support that is needed and the service that is required by state mandates. We have, if you look behind the door, this was a custodial closet. So you look at this, and this is like a custodial closet that is basically, was converted into a learning space to create a temporary solution. Again, that's unacceptable for our school. You're looking at this office. It was a small location that was converted into a small support service. And I asked the principal and one of the teachers to sit, just to give you an idea of how small that place is. When you look at the many projects listed, this capital improvement proposal will provide our students with tremendous opportunity, because when you look at the work that we are proposing, it spans in pretty much every single school. There is not one school that is left out. When you look at some of the conditions where students are learning, the board supported an orchestra program, I believe 2 years ago, and students right now are kind of creating a sort of a music room in a cafeteria. So the custodians are dismantling the tables and then having the students play the music and then put it back and ready for lunch. So it's back and forth. This is a Vernon. You look at all the instruments, put it on the side. Not only the manpower to put it together and put it away, put it together away, but also the instruments being moved with the possibility of getting damaged. So education, and that's one of the things that we've been saying, has changed, that we need to create that facility so that will reflect the work, the teaching and learning that is going on that is different than it used to be. I found this slide, and it kind of wraps it up all together. When we teach today the way we were taught yesterday, we're not preparing them for today, not for tomorrow. And I think it sends a powerful message. Enhance our school. Why? We want to enhance our schools and get ready for the 21st century. At Roosevelt, we have learning space that is not acceptable, as you have seen, inappropriate spaces. And non-classrooms are used to adhere to state requirement. And one of the questions that I had from a community member was, population is not increasing. Why are we expanding on the building? Population is not increasing, but the mandates from the state and the requirements that we have to follow, the regulations, are different than it used to be 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So now things are changing, and that's why we have to make sure that we adhere to those mandates. I think this picture is great. It kind of reflects what it was yesterday, and this is what it is today, and that's the way it should be, where the students learn together, collaborate with each other. Now, usually the why we're doing what we're doing is pretty evident. How we do it, and that's something that it is also important, because we can decide that we need to do something, why we need it, that's important, but how we do it, it's also equally important. So when you look at the debt service is falling off, we've been discussing this for a while. We have debt service that is falling off from previous bond work that it was done. It is important that we inform the community of this debt service that is falling off and use this one-time opportunity. I said many times for the past several months that this bond vote on December 7th is critical, because if we don't have a successful vote, we cannot put this up again, because we will miss the timeline. And by the time we get to work to start, it will not go into the financials for the 23-24. Interest rates are currently low. We have been meeting with the financial advisor, and we have looked at different scenarios. And at this point, the rates are low, and even if they will increase from the point that they are now, it's still going to be within the number, the debt service that we have as a target. So when you look at the debt service coming off in 23-24, you could see that it's going from a $2.2 roughly million payment to a $522,000. So that would be a sort of a saving right there of $1.7 million. So when you look at the retiring bond, I think this slide is very powerful, because you could see the benefit of doing it at this time because of the financial conditions that are there. So approximately, we are retiring a bond that it was about $15.5 million at a debt service cost, so the payment is $2.2 million. So in simple terms, we were spending, we spent $15.5, and the yearly cost is about $2.2, and the new bond is about a cost of approximately $30 million, right, 29 and change, and the payment is the same because of the interest rate the way it is right now. So I think that alone, you could see the benefits of almost doubling the work for the same cost. This is the approximate cost of all the money that we would be allowed to spend if we have a successful bond vote. So you will see that it's pretty much in every school. The high school has the least, and then you have Theodore Roosevelt and Vernon, and some building condition survey work that is important to do in order to get to maintain the buildings in good condition. What we're doing it, we pretty much, like I said, every school. So in red, you see the items there from the building condition survey. Those are maintenance. You would have the innovation lab, 21st century classrooms renovation, turf field in the back of the high school, and the enhancing the main entrance. At Vernon, you have the extension of the music wing, renovation of current music classrooms, the Butler building renovation, and new ground apartment storage, and the cafeteria renovation, which is an original cafeteria from the time that the building was built. At Theodore Roosevelt, you have the extension of the entire wing on the side of the building. The administration building does not have any aesthetic, just obviously part of building condition survey. Those are some concept ideas and things that we've been exploring. Obviously, right now, we have not gone full force with the architects because obviously we don't want to spend any resource, but when the time comes, those are some ideas of work that was done before, and ideas that we will look when we go into the design phase. So it's a classroom, again, some areas by the library. We have a multimedia studio and broadcasting studio that we would have. Obviously, renovation of the music room. Those are some ideas, a cafeteria. The bond highlights, we've been posting it. We have been putting on social media. We created a bond flyer. You should have received that in the mail. The bond vote is on December 7th from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. It's in the beautiful chorus room that was just built a few years ago. So hopefully we will see you there. And the other thing that we have done and we have maintained, we have revamped the website. So we have on the website a specific page that has all the presentations. And if you scroll down on the video on the website, you will see you also have all the YouTube videos that have been recorded, so they're there if you want to look back. The mission has been clear from the beginning, and that is to empower our students to achieve excellence. And we want to create that learning space, and we want to do that so the students can benefit from this one-time opportunity. Has been truly a pleasure to work with the community. I've visited several organizations, and good questions that we had, and hopefully you feel that you've been informed about the referendum, the bond referendum, and hopefully you will come out, vote, and support our students. At this time, I don't know if the board has any questions.
Dr. Yanni, I would just like to make a comment. So, you know, when you look at the financial health of our district, I think it is prudent upon us as a board to be forward-thinking. We have 3 buildings that we need to maintain in the district. And currently, right now, we have makeshift spaces that are temporary. And while the community may be thinking a $30 million bond is tremendous, and it's half our budget size, when you look at the debt service being $2.2 million a year, that's only 3.5% of our entire budget per year, because these bonds are very long-term, and the rates are fixed. And if we can fix at a very low rate at this point in time and improve 3 schools, it's an opportunity that I support 100%, because we only get an opportunity every 15 years, because it'll be 15 years before this bond rolls off again. So we have the opportunity now to improve our schools, to meet state mandates, to deliver an education that is expected of our colleges. And I think it's a real missed opportunity if we don't come together as a community and support coming out to vote for this bond.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Santos. Anyone else? Okay, let's move on to the opportunity for the public to be heard on agenda items in accordance with the open meetings law. School board meetings where school district business will be discussed are open to the public. The Oyster Bay East Norwich Board of Education welcomes public comment at its meetings. The Board of Education will respond to comments or inquiries in the appropriate manner. This portion of the meeting is designed exclusively for agenda items. A sign-in book is provided for those residents wishing to address the board. In order to be recognized, you must be signed in. Each speaker will be allowed a maximum of 3 minutes. The board president will call you to the microphone in the order in which you have signed in. Public discussion is prohibited regarding matters relating to an individual's reputation, privacy, or right to due process, which in some way could be violated. A second commentary period is provided for non-agenda items prior to adjournment. We thank you for your participation and cooperation. Okay, the first person is Mr. Chris Jones. Hi.
It's good to see you. I know most, or a bunch of you on the board, and thank you for serving. I have two comments. One is, I'll start with the budget. You know, I've run businesses for 30 years. We're all stuck in a world where we're being asked to do more, do it better, with less and for less every day. I agree with the interest rate, and I agree with the opportunity that we have with the bond dropping off and spend money at low interest rates. I think you're going to find a very specific challenge with being able to build or do significant renovations with the costs of those things right now with construction and everything else. So I would just encourage you to really spend the time to get real numbers, because right now it's a little loose, and I think the numbers are significantly off just from looking at what you're sharing. So that would be my biggest concern. You start on this road to get the bond, and we can't finish it because the costs just exceed what we anticipated. Second thing is dealing with the vaccine mandate. It sounds like I'm in agreement, or you're in agreement with me, with where we stand with having a difference of opinion with where the legislature and the governor seems to be going with a vaccine mandate of some kind. I guess I have one question. One main question is, if the state legislature or the governor, haphazardly in my opinion, makes a decision to mandate the vaccine, does that require us to comply? Are we compelled in any way? Or do we have the right to make our own decision as a local school district? So that's my main question. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. First, I just want to address the first part of your question. When we look at the bond, the capital work, one of the things that we have done are those numbers. In those numbers, we have included escalation fees and all the other design fee, everything that could go in a different direction. So I have experience with capital work for many years. So the idea is, the main objective is to get the work done within those numbers. So everything has been taken into account. So that's one piece. So I want you to rest assured to that. The second piece with the mandates from the state. What I've seen in the past, and this was before COVID in 2019, if I'm not wrong, if everything goes to a point which, like you at this point, I have a tough time to believe that will come. If the mandate will come, and the governor of the state and everybody says that's the direction that we're going, I don't think we have an option not to follow those directives. There are some repercussions, and I think that's what I've seen in the past. So,
what are the repercussions? I mean, is it a financial thing?
Financial, and also, when, as a superintendent of schools, I have requirements to follow the law and be in compliance. So in the past, I've seen situations where even the license can be removed. I mean, we work for the state, for the New York State. So once that direction will come, is a directive from the state. And I don't know, Miss. Yeah.
So it's nice that the committee's going to form and do the work, and I thank you for doing it. But is it somewhat of an illusion? I mean, this is all going to happen out of Albany. If it occurs, what I heard you say is we're stuck. We're in compliance. We have to be in compliance. This question about whether or not we have a choice is somewhat of an illusion.
It's not really an illusion, because what we do is number one, we have a great relationship with the legislators, local legislators, and we have a relationship with the senator. So at the end of the day, we're going to do everything, and I think you heard the board, we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that the legislators and the senators, they will know how the community feels about a mandate. And I don't think we are alone in this voicing our opinion against something that at this point with a vaccine that has been out just for more than a year, mandating that will be something effective for the school system. So we have a good relationship, we have conversations, and they listen. They want to know how the community feels. When they vote, when they go the assembly, the Senate, hopefully they will reflect on what they heard and make the right decision.
I truly hope it plays out that way. I would imagine, so it sounds like the fight is in Albany primarily, and that whatever we have to do to communicate to Albany.
We're gonna do
don't have
everything in
much
our
choice there.
power, yeah, we're gonna do everything in our power to do our part, but I think it's also important that, at your level, to send letters, to go on the website, to communicate, because the more the better, and that's what it comes down to.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anne Marie Longo. Hi, Anne Marie.
I got a couple of questions. One about the audit report. So is that going to be posted, the full audit report, on the website tomorrow? And she showed that there was $4 million in the capital fund. Is that capital and technology, or just capital fund? Because I don't see on the treasurer's report the technology fund. In addition to that, just a few questions on the bond. So in both your brochure and in the newspaper, it says it's no increase in respect to debt service. But truthfully, there could possibly be an increase to the taxpayers. You're stating a rate of 1.25%. Can you fund that bond and get interest rates in today's market? Or do you have to wait a year and a half to fund that bond? Our current bonds are coming off, as you showed, at 2.5 to 5%. So is it truly 2.2 million and replacing debt service, or is it going to be higher for the community? And I think that's the greatest concern. You're talking about bans this year, if the bond goes through, at 3.5 to 4% interest rate. How much money are we going to do the bans? And you're talking about $900,000 to do improvements in the schools, which are standard stuff. We have a $4 million capital fund, so why are we borrowing money? When we take money out of a capital fund, it truly is at no cost to the taxpayers. That capital fund has funded the fields up at Vernon, partially funded the music wing, and has funded in excess of $10 million worth of improvements over the last 10 years in the school. So why would the taxpayers have to pay twice when we can still keep funding and using capital funds to update our schools?
Thank you. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. So the answer to your first question is yes, the financial would be posted on the website tomorrow morning. That was your first question. In terms of the $4 million reserve, the $4 million includes approximately $1 million in the technology reserve.
So it's a combination?
Yes.
4 plus 1?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
No,
Is it $4 million altogether? $3 million is capital,
Oh,
$1
sorry,
million
3
is technology,
Right, okay.
right? The number 3 question, when we look at the increase, what I stated in the brochure is that there is no increase with respect to debt service, because the debt service, the number that we're going to keep it at is $2.2 million. So in terms of the debt service, that's not going to increase. The budget from year to year, it will increase at the rate that we usually increase. So we have seen an increase going around the 2% mark. So that, unfortunately, Ms. Longo, I can't control that.
No,
The other,
go on.
go ahead,
So just in respect to that, so the debt service is $2.2 million.
correct.
At 15 years, it's $2 million a year to pay back the debt service. So you're saying, well, what you're stating is that it's only going to be $200,000 a year in the next 15 years in interest rate. And that's what's being represented to the community.
I
No
don't,
increase in our taxes. If the debt service goes up, people in Oyster Bay are going to pay increase in taxes.
so the debt service is not, we don't plan to have the debt service going higher than $2.2 million, because what we are planning to do is, with the combination of bans and bonds, what we plan to do is to stay within that $2.2 million.
And what happens if we can't? What happens if interest rate because you can't even fund this bond for another year and a half, 2 years?
Yeah.
What happens if interest rate goes up to 6%?
So I've done some research with our financial auditors, right? So we're looking at, just looking at numbers. one thing I agree with you is I can't predict the future 100%. If I was able to do that, then I would not be sitting here, right? So if we're looking at a $25 million bond, right? And this is a number straight from the financial advisor. So I'm planning a $30 million bond. $5 million would be bands for the first few years. So to answer your question on your sixth question, which was, what was the interest rate on the bands? The interest rate on the bands currently right now is between 0.25% and 0.36. So $5 million would be from the bands, right? And then $25 million. So if we go with a $25 million bond, I've done different scenarios. So $25 million bond at 16 years, 15 years. And I calculated even a scenario where we will go up all the way to a 5%, which, using the words of our financial advisor, they have not seen that kind of number in the past few years. So even going to a reasonable number, going from a 1.25 right now to, let's say, a 4%, right, increase, dealing with a 15-year bond, it will have a $2.2 million, and 4% was a number that it was seen about 12 years ago, roughly. And my other point is that I want to make is that because we are being proactive in terms of when we bond the money, we have the flexibility of the term, we have the flexibility of the amount, so, and we also have the tremendous flexibility of locking it at the right time. So for example, if in 2 years from now, right, we'll see that the numbers are going up, we can quickly get the bond, lock it, and then at that point reduce the chance of that percentage escalating. So the window for us is just few years. And those few years, they're truly controllable by the fact that we have the bonds and the band. The other question that you had was about the 2.2, I explained that. The bands, I explained that. The $900,000, right now we have truly a capital reserve that is approximately $3 million if we're looking at this financial right now. Every year, and I've done an analysis with the board, every year the community is pretty much supporting an expense of approximately $2 million in capital work. So the idea of the $900,000 is to accomplish two goals. The first one is to make sure that we maintain the facility in good condition. But the second piece, which is the most important one, that we didn't want to overwhelm the community with information, but I'm sure you're fully aware of it, is the fact that some work, for example, the work in phase 1 of the turf field, in order to receive a building aid on the turf field, we need to pair up with some internal work that needs to be done immediately. So when you look at when we submit the work for the turf field, which that work will start in the summer of 2022, 6 months from now, 7 months from now, in order to get the building aid approval and the building aid fund, we will pair up with some of the work that is done internally, and that's where this comes from. So to benefit from that. Building aid in this district is about 10%, but 10% is a good amount. And I think the message, and I was very fortunate the other day to talk to the Italian American Club, and one of the questions that came up that they asked about, the bond and the work, and do you really need to spend $30 million? Can you scale it down and do a little bit at a time? And my answer has been consistent and very simple. If we look at this work and say, looking just a year ahead of us, 2 years ahead of us, it doesn't pay. At the end of the day, the tax will go down in 2 years if we don't do anything. But my job as the leader in this community is to look at this district 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And Ms. Longo, I know I'm talking to somebody that has been behind this seat, so you know that, and you know because you lived it, is a lot more work to put a bond forward than to keep my mouth closed and let the tax go down in 2 years and be the hero. But 10 years from now, 15 years from now, when I'm in Florida and in Italy, and the tax will spike up because you need to do the work, people are going to turn around and say, that guy had a nice accent, but he didn't know what he was doing because we were going through a cliff and it didn't do it. So it is a lot more work to put a bond. But what I could tell you is that at the end of the day, I know as a parent, as a father first, this is the right thing to do. And trust me, I want to be in this community for many years. And I've looked at these numbers, back and forth, because the last thing I want to do is not have a project completed, to have an over budget, and to have a situation where people can come back to me and say, you said this, but then you're doing something else. And that's something that I take it to heart. So I hope I answer all your questions.
Yep, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Gina Weinberg?
Hey, everybody. First of all, I want to congratulate you on your first year. And I'm sure you really didn't want to see me tonight. But you'll never forget me for your first year, that I know.
I like you very much. I don't know why you think
No,
that,
I know,
but
I know.
I was
No,
thinking of you when I was running the race,
because,
though.
you know what? It's your first year, and when you go back and say, my first year in Oyster Bay, there was this mom, and she drove me crazy for like months. But I'm glad you guys at least brought it to the table so we can have a conversation, because obviously, I've been coming here for months, trying to get it. But I do want to say, because over the weekend, I was told several times, take my energy, go to Albany. And believe me, there's thousands of parents, all the groups I'm in. We've been phoning them, we've been emailing them. We're doing our part. But what I want the community to understand is that the reason we're coming and asking you, and I did what I did for months, which maybe nobody realized why I was doing what I was doing, is because the mask mandate was not really a law. And what happened was our governor, you are correct, our governor bypassed our state elected officials, so they did not have to be held accountable. They pushed it to the Department of Health to come up with these rules and regulations, which the Department of Health, looks after medical facilities, nursing homes. And what they did in coordination with the Board of Education was put the liability on you, all of you. So you are the expendable ones for the state. So the parents could come after you because you are our voice. And I tried to explain this. You are our representatives. So it's not me that needs to go to Albany. It's really all of you that need to press Albany because they put that liability on all of you. So that's what I want. And now with the vax mandate, it doesn't matter. Like I said, a mandate is unlawful. It's not a law. But what scares me, and is what you guys brought to everyone's attention tonight, is this is going to the Assembly. It is a bill now. And then once it does become law, there isn't anything we're going to be able to do about it. So just hear me out 1 second. So with that being said, on that bill from 2019, they added the COVID-19 to be a compulsory vaccine, so every child going forward will have to get that vaccine. And with that, they gave us no alternative for any kind of religious exemption because that is gone too. But it's not just for the children. It's for all of the adults in New York State who currently right now haven't left their jobs because some of them do have a religious exemption. So when that religious exemption is voted on and it's gone across the state, that means that a lot of parents are going to be, families are going to put themselves in the position. Do I get the vaccine and go against my will to save my job? Do I go against my, what I believe, and I don't want to vaccinate my children at this time? Do I pull my kids out of school and homeschool? Or some families are going to be in a position to say, you know what? We're packing up. We're out of here. I'm closing my businesses down, or I'm just leaving my job. And some of them already have put in and said, you know what? We're going to transfer, and I'm going to go.
Ms. Weinberg, I hope you understand that I enjoy our conversations many times, and we spoke many times. And I hope you understand that I have nothing against you, and I'm just sharing with you information. So I do like you very much. I want to say, in terms of the mask, that this worked for us because it kept the school open. And that's why the board supported my decision to open the school, to bring everybody back and keep the mask. But this is a board that is committed to keep the students in place, to keep the student in school, learning in school. So this work that we do, I do appreciate the fact that you and many community members are voicing their opinion to the Assembly, to the Senate. We're going to continue to do our part. But I think the timing for the mask was the right thing for us to keep the school going. It was not worth to fight a fight on something that it was irrelevant.
Well, I did ask you because originally it wasn't a law, and you were able to stand your ground. You were. Maybe none of you were in a position that you wanted to deal with New York State, and it was easier to just give in. But I told you this time was coming. So now we're here, right? Now we're here.
But I want to say something. You are correct in terms of the law, but you also have to understand that the regulations for quarantine had not changed at that time. So we could have said no mask, but in terms of the quarantine, we would have quarantined a lot of students, and that's the thing that we did not want to do.
I understand.
Yeah.
What's going on with the quarantine still doesn't make sense because the kids who are vaccinated aren't getting quarantined, and the kids who are have to quarantine. So really, across the board, it doesn't make sense. And quite frankly, I do know that the Department of Health did send the letter, so all the superintendents are aware that even right now tonight, any kind of meeting, board meeting, administration meeting, you guys can be in here and you don't have to wear a mask. But, to me, it's a little bit of hypocrisy science. You guys can sit here, 15, 20, 30 administrators sit at a board meeting in this school. All of us here right now, we're all adults, there's no children. We can sit here with no mask, according to the Department of Health letter that you guys received, but yet my children has to come in here. My child has to come in here with no mask. And originally when I came to you guys, I asked you, you know what, just let them pull the mask down at the desk. Then when they get up and move around the school, put the mask on. That's in the past. It's done. What I asked to be done was not done. But I'm just saying the liability really fell on the board. So with that, I just have one question. Are any of you, or which one of you on the board, or maybe all of you, how many of you are bonded? Like bonded for liability, like usually it's the superintendent, the president, the treasurer. I'm just curious how many of you are bonded, like for liability?
I don't know the answer to that question. Bonded, what do you mean?
Like in other words, you usually bonded, like if you're on a board, you're bonded insurance in case, somebody files a report or complaint against anybody. You have to have some.
I have indemnification on my
Right, like
contract, right?
exactly. That's what I mean. It's like.
Yeah, the indemnification, I do have it on I think everybody that is performing the duty of the job.
Usually, is it the whole board, or is it just the superintendent, the president, and the treasurer?
No, I think
So no board members? Not one board? Oh, okay. No, I was just curious. That's what I'm saying. No, usually it is the superintendent. I'm just wondering how many of the board members and what board members. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay. Let's move on to personnel actions. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education of the Oyster Bay East Norwich School District hereby approves the following professional personnel and civil service personnel resolutions as listed. That goes on to page 5. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Congratulations. Congratulations, Elaine. Welcome.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations. Business actions. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education of the Oyster Bay East Norwich Central School District hereby approves the following business resolutions as listed. Do I have a motion? Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Move on to special services. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education of the Oyster Bay East Norwich Central School District hereby approves the following special services resolution as listed. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. New business. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education of the Oyster Bay East Norwich Central School District hereby approves the following new business resolution as listed. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I would just like to say at this time, Michael McGuckin was a dear friend of mine, and I just think it's a beautiful thing that his family did in this scholarship in his name. He always really supported our schools and supported our athletic program, and I just wanted to say thank you to the family.
Thank you. Okay, motion carries then. Friday packet? Okay, now we move on to opportunities. Did anybody sign in for the second session?
Dudley? Second session?
No, okay. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Thank you. Thank you, everyone.